Okay. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you for the afternoon session. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our first speaker for this afternoon, Professor Vivek Paul Shettivar of Chemistry at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai. He is a renowned researcher in the field of nanomaterials and catalysts, particularly known for his work on plasmonic black gold and dendritic fibrous nanosilica. His contributions to sustainable catalysis, defect engineering, and strong metal support interactions have earned him several prestigious honors, including the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award, Fellowship of Indian and National Academy of Science, and the IUPAC Kemravan 7 Prize for Green Chemistry, among others. Please join me in welcoming Professor Vivek Paul Shettivar.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Professor Bhanke, who invited me here, but I think he's not here, and also to Professor Atul. So, what happened? It's okay, I guess. It's okay. So, today I'm going to talk about light, electrons, and action. So, overall, I'm going to explain to you how do we design a new material which has ability to harvest the light, a complete light, broadband light, starting from UV to visible to near IR. Then I will try to discuss how we generate the electrons, excited electrons, highly energetic electrons, we call them hot electrons. And once you generate these electrons, how do I use these electrons to carry out various catalytic reactions? That's action in this particular case. So I guess we all know about the climate change, and we all know that the CO2 is one of the real cause of the climate change. And there are various ways of taking care of the climate change. Simpler way is to capture the CO2 and store somewhere, but we all know that that is not the real solution. That's not the final solution. What do you do once you capture the CO2? And how do you store such a large amount of CO2? So my group's objective is to, can we not use this excessive CO2 as a source of a carbon and convert that CO2 into useful chemicals? Right, so that's the overall conclusion of the work that we're trying to do, is the CO2 utilization is the way forward. But then if that is the case, then why is this process not yet commercially viable? What are the issues, what are the challenges? So I'm going to explain both the side of it, what we are doing, and what are the challenges that we are facing to really make this process sustainable. So this is one of my favorite reaction, which is CO2 free, water freely available, sunlight again naturally available. And you react these two, produce CO and hydrogen. This is syngas, as the name suggests. It's a synthesis gas. By combining these two gas, ideally you can make large number of artificial chemicals that we are making anyway today using the commercial processes. And this also completes the carbon cycle. You see, you have CO2 pass through the catalyst, use solar energy, convert CO2 into useful chemicals, fuels, burn, gets the energy, do the work, and the CO2 that is emitted goes back to the reactor. So ideally in this cycle, no CO2 is emitted, and therefore you will achieve that so-called net zero dream. But if that is the case, if it is a one reaction which has a ability to stop a climate change, then why this is not happening? Why this is not successful yet? Although there are lots of claims and startups. The reason is very simple. The very basic of a chemistry. CO2, sp hybridized linear molecule, extremely stable. Now, if you want to convert that CO2 into something else, you need to put huge amount of energy. So that means energy that I am putting in that process is higher than the energy that I'm going to get. So why will anyone do this process? This is economically not viable. So what could be the solution? What do I do now to reduce the energy required for the CO2 to convert into useful chemicals? And this is again very unique chemistry. So why CO2 is stable? Because it is linear and sp hybridized. If I can break the linearity, the CO2 becomes highly reactive, and the energy required to overcome the activation barrier is less. Now, how do I break the linearity? How do I bend the molecule and stretch the molecule? And that's what we exactly do. We develop large number of nanomaterials which has a high surface area, high surface energy, and you imagine you have such a, let us say, just one of the example is the electropositive surface. You have CO2 going towards the surface, 2 oxygen, 1 carbon. What will happen? The 2 oxygen will get more attracted towards the electropositive surface. You will bend the molecule, you will stretch the molecule, and that bending and stretching itself will reduce the activation energy barrier very significantly. We call them a CO2 activation in typical chemical process. And then the remaining energy should come from a sunlight. So that means now I need a material which can do two functions. One is the CO2 adsorption and bending and stretching, CO2 activation. And the same material should also able to harvest the solar energy and somehow transfer that solar energy into the activated CO2 molecule. And this is what we do in our group, and I'm going to present to you this particular research. So now, if we ask this question, how do I design such a catalytic system which does all these things? Capture CO2, activate CO2, harvest solar energy, generate electron, and transfer it to the CO2. So what you need optical property which has the material which has excellent optical property. It can harvest lots of light, high extinction coefficient. It harvests all the photons coming from the sunlight, UV, visible, IR. And once these material capture the sunlight, the electron goes to the excited states. So you have excited electrons and you have holes. Right? These are called charge carriers. And now, if they combine with each other, then there is no chance of these electrons to go to the CO2 molecule. So we call them a lifetime of these two species, holes and electrons. So how do I improve? How do I get a charge carrier which has a long lifetime so that they go to the CO2 rather than recombining with the hole? Then they also need to be mobile, right? I'm producing the charge somewhere in the nanoparticle, let us say, but my CO2 is somewhere else. Then this charge has to move from that point to the CO2. So that mobility has to be also very fast, right? Then band structure alignment. The energy of the electron should be such that it can inject the electron into the CO2, LUMO of the CO2, and the light scattering. But this is just one side of that catalyst design. Other side is structural properties. You need a material which has very high surface area so that it can take lots of CO2 molecule, lots of water molecule, lots of hydrogen molecule. It should have a hierarchical pore structure, not a typical porous material like MOF or something which has a one entry and one exit. What you need is a molecule should be able to enter from anywhere in the catalytic system, and the product should come out from anywhere from the catalytic system. Right? That's very unique structure that you need. The surface area should be accessible. There should be efficient mass transport, reactant mass transport, product mass transport. Obviously, the material should be stable structurally in terms of thermal, mechanical, and obviously it should be scalable. So it looks like if you want to really design a one ideal catalyst having all these properties, it looks like very challenging. How come you have all these properties in one particular material? It looks very challenging. But that's what we are trying to do in our lab. So this is our material. This is our patented material. It is a nanosilica having this fibrous structure, this dendritic fibrous structure. That's why this fancy name, dendritic fibrous nanosilica. You can tune the particle size from 50 nanometer, 50 to 100, 100 to 200 in a range up to 1200 nanometer. It has a very high surface area, up to 1200 meters per gram. For those who don't appreciate the numbers, it's like if you take a 1 gram powder in your hand, it's like a 1 football ground area in just 1 gram of a powder. It's a huge surface area, and you can imagine you can absorb lots of CO2 molecule, lots of water molecule, H2 molecule, and that improves overall catalytic activity. Hydrothermal stability, that means it's stable in water. Mechanical stability, you can pressurize up to 130 megapascal and nothing happens. Unique fibrous morphology and easy to synthesize. And my entire group works on this one particular material from last 12, 13 years now. And we obviously explore this for CO2 mitigation and catalysis, but there are other groups worldwide who are exploring this material for a range of other applications. So you can see these are highly monodispersed nanoparticles. You can see those fibrous structure, the pore size distribution, the N2 sorption term. One of the questions that we ask in our lab is very fundamental. Why the particle is spherical in nature? Why not some other shape? Why particle is fibrous in nature? Why not a solid smooth sphere? Right? The idea is if once you understand the formation mechanism of these material, you can use that knowledge and then design a new kind of a material. Right? If this doesn't work for your application. So now let us ask this question that how are we producing these silica particles? So simple organic reaction is you take a tetraethoxysilane, Si and 4-ethoxy group, hydrolyze, you get a silicic acid, you do condensation, polycondensation, you get a silica, SiO, randomly amorphously connected, that's your silica, the silica that you use in column chromatography or the sand on the beach. What we want is a nanoparticle. So we want to do the same reaction but now in a confined environment so that the growth will stop at the nanoscale and the shape of the nanoparticle should be fibrous in nature. So how do we do that? We use these surfactant, which is a quaternary nitrogen. So this is a polar head and you have 16 carbon, so 6 acetyl group. This is a non-polar tail. So in cartoon it is shown as blue ball as a quaternary nitrogen and the zigzag line as the hydrocarbon chain, polar, non-polar. I will show you the animation to follow this better. So these are the CTAB molecules, quaternary nitrogen polar head, that zigzag white line is your acetyl group. We added them into the solvent solvent is a mixture of water and xylene, polar and non-polar 50-50%, what will happen now? There will be lots of collision between the molecule. Now to minimize the total energy of the system, they self-assemble by themselves and they form these lamellar phases now. Now you can say there could be still a repulsion between these quaternary nitrogen molecules. So we add one more molecule, say pentanol or hexanol, having this polar head and a non-polar tail. They go in between some of these and stabilizes these interfaces, right? And you form these stable lamellar phases. But what we observe that these lamellar phases are not floating flat in the solvent. If they are flat, your material should also be flat, 2D material. What we get is a spherical material because they form these droplets. They form these, we call them a bicontinuous microemulsion droplet. So these are the droplet made up of water, xylene and CTAB, right? And once the droplets are formed in the water channel, you already have the silica precursor and some amount of urea. You heat, urea decomposes into ammonium hydroxide, which is your base, and then the silica precursor undergo a base catalyzed hydrolysis polycondensation reaction, and you get a silica exactly like this template. And this is template made up of a carbon, so you can either do some solvent extraction or you can do a calcination and you remove this carbon-based template and you get a silica exactly like the way you are seeing it. We learn to merge them together so that you get a bigger particle. We also learn to keep them away by simply changing some reaction condition, and you can make now a nanoparticle of DFNS as small as 50 nanometer to as big as 1200 nanometer. Okay, so now it looks like a very good material in terms of porosity, textural properties, particle size distribution. But that's just this part of it. The other part of it is it should harvest the light. It should activate the CO2, and silica doesn't do any of these, right? So now the next question is, what do I do with the silica so that it starts harvesting the light? Silica is insulating material, large band gap. So it has to be deep UV if you want to harvest the light. And what we want to harvest is visible light. So how do I harvest the visible light? What do I do with the silica, which is insulating, to harvest the visible light? And there I will try to explain to you a concept of surface plasmon resonance. So I will try to simplify this for those who don't know this. So we all use the gold jewelry, and gold is very shiny yellow tone. Why? Gold is metal, it has electron cloud onto the surface, light photon comes in, the electron cloud just reflects the light photons. That's why ideally it should be white, but it does absorb some amount of a blue light, and that's why it has a yellow tone color. However, when you go to the nanoscale, the same gold, say 10 nanometer gold particle, it also has electron cloud, it's metallic, and when light comes in, it doesn't reflect that light. Because light has electric field, the electrons also electric, right? It has an oscillating part. So when light comes in, you have an oscillating electric field, these electrons are also oscillating, and when this oscillation frequency and the light frequency matches, there is a resonance. Right? That is called the resonance, the plasmon resonance. It is localized onto the nanoparticle surface. That's why it's called localized surface plasmon resonance. So if you take a 10 nanometer gold particle, you can harvest the light of a 550 nanometer. Right? That's how it is. If you take a 20 nanometer, you can go even red to this. However, the problem is now, what I really want is a material which can harvest every single photon coming from the sunlight, starting from 400 nanometer to say 1200 nanometer, which is not possible by simply taking a 10 nanometer gold particle. So then there is a theory. Okay, before that, let me explain to you what, maybe I come back to this. So there is a theory which says that if you bring two gold nanoparticles together, they start interacting with each other, right? It's like a conjugation in organic chemistry. If you bring many gold nanoparticles together, the electron cloud of one nanoparticle interact with another, and then that interaction, we call them a plasmonic coupling, allows you to have a broadband light absorption. That's a theory, and that's where we wanted to design a material. However, before that, let me go back now and explain to you why this is really important. So once gold nanoparticle absorbs the light, so now nanoparticle is full of this extra energy, right? So now something must happen in the nanoparticle to take care of that energy. And what happens is, this could be a little bit of physics. So when you have a metals, you have a Fermi level, right? So electrons are there up to Fermi level. Now when you absorb, that metal nanoparticle absorbs the light, the electron goes above Fermi level by D to S transition or S to S transition. We can ignore this part. So now you can see the electrons are above Fermi. This is a Fermi level, above Fermi level. And these are highly energetic electrons. I can take these electrons and inject into the CO2. Now CO2 becomes CO2 radical anion. So neutral CO2 is extremely stable, but CO2 radical anion is extremely reactive. You bend, you stretch, it changes everything, bond angle, bond length. And I showed you the first image. where how to change the activation energy barrier. So you reduce the activation energy barrier by simply transferring electron to the CO2. So that's the idea. You develop a photocatalytic system which harvests entire solar spectrum, and then you generate these electron and transfer the electron to the CO2. Rest of the thing is very easy now. You convert that reactive CO2 into something else. Okay. Skip this part. So now the question is, how do I tune the gaps between the nanoparticle? I told you that we need to bring lots of gold particles together. You cannot do it in a solvent because in solvent they are dynamically moving, right? So this was one of the problem in the synthetic chemistry, material synthesis chemistry. How do we tune it? So what we did, let us assume you have that one silica sheet of this entire DFNS fiber that I showed you. You functionalize that at equal distance with amine, load small gold nanoparticles. This is called the nucleation stage. I will show this part here, right? So this is a nucleation stage where the concentration of gold atom is such that you are above supersaturation and you form these nanoparticles. In the second cycle now, what I will do, I will stay below the concentration of the supersaturation. What it means is when I load second cycle of the gold, it only grows the existing gold nanoparticle and doesn't form the gold at different surfaces, empty surfaces. What will happen now? You see, you are increasing the particle size slowly in every step, every cycle, and the distance d between the particle is decreasing. This is exactly we wanted to know. Although I said that if you bring the two particles closer, they will do a light harvesting. But we don't know what is that distance. Whether it's 1 nanometer, 10 nanometer, 100 nanometer. We don't know that when we started the project. So that's why we decided to make nano material with the different distances between the gold nanoparticle. This is okay. This is another that same cartoon to show you that how we made it. Right, so you can see cycle 0, cycle 1, cycle 3, cycle 4, the gold nanoparticles are coming closer and closer and trying to interact with each other. Now, let us see how they behave. So look, so this is a 0th cycle, first cycle, third cycle, fourth cycle, sixth cycle. When you move from 0 to 6, particles are coming closer and closer and closer, the gold nanoparticles. And you see now, at fourth cycle, it becomes dark black. So it's the same gold nanoparticle. We haven't done any doping, there is no change in the hybridization, there is no change in the oxidation. It's a metallic gold which used to harvest only 550 nanometer, now harvest entire spectrum from 400 nanometer to 1100 nanometer. Right? So that was the first condition. You should have high surface area and the material should harvest large number of solar photon coming from across the UV and visible. Now, so we were very excited. We thought, okay, now we really discovered something, a black gold which has all the potential to harvest all the photon and it should show very good photocatalytic activity, right? So the idea of this talk is not to show only the positive result, but also the challenges, how you feel it is good and how it doesn't at the end. So we compare this, our gold catalyst, black gold with the conventional 10 nanometer gold nanoparticle for this particular reaction. CO2 plus water, sunlight, you get a methane, and you can see black gold is nearly double than the best reported conversion rate, best reported yield, right? So this says, okay, black gold seems to be a good material because it harvests all the photon, right? That's what all of you will agree. But now look at the y-axis, and the unit of y-axis is micromole per gram, which is 1.5 micromole per gram, and we are talking about a 40 gigatons of CO2. This is not even in the noise, practically. Now, fundamentally, if my material harvests all the photons, how come the yield is so low? So that means something is missing in our understanding. So that what it means is that material not only need to harvest all the photons, but something else it should able to do to get you the good activity. So what was our hypothesis to answer this question that why methane is low is this. I told you, black gold harvests the photon, then electron goes to the excited state. You see these electrons. And I need to take these electrons, inject into the CO2 to do all this chemistry. However, what is probably happening is these electrons are not going to the CO2 but recombining with the holes. Right, that is more preferred path. Recombination is more preferred over it goes to the CO2. And that could be the reason why it is not giving you the good data, good results, good kinetics. So how do I solve this problem? So we came up with this idea that you take a gold nanoparticle which has this particular structure and then you add a nickel nanoparticle. Nickel has this empty state. So what will happen? When electron goes to the excited state, before they come back and meet the hole, they inject into the empty states of nickel. Right? Now electron is in nickel and hole is in gold. You separated them. Now they cannot recombine. Your CO2 is sitting onto the nickel side. So as soon as the electron goes to the nickel, it goes to the CO2. Right? This was our hypothesis, and let us see whether this works. So we prepared this material. We took the black gold, loaded with a nickel. Nickel is on gold surface as well as between the gold nanoparticle. Characterization, you can see wherever there is a gold, there is a nickel, indicating that There is a nice combination of the electron, the nickel and gold. These are additional characterization. I will skip to save the time. I don't know how much time I have. 5 minutes. Ooh. Okay, so I'm very slow. So this is typical reaction. So this is a black gold nickel. We keep it here. Light comes from the top. You have a gas which is CO2 and hydrogen. It goes through, interact with the catalyst, and then it goes to the GC. It's a completely flow reactor online monitored by the micro GC. And now look at the result. So we have done at a very different light intensity. Let us look at this particular result, which is done at 2.77 watt per centimeter square. And now you look at the number. More than 2500, and look at the unit, millimole per gram per hour. So we jump from 1.5 micromole in 6 hours, micromole per gram in 6 hours, versus this is a million times increase in the catalytic rate by simply changing, making the gold nickel, separating electron and hole, increasing the lifetime of the electron hole, and you can see a dramatic increase in this was one of the best reported results at that time in 2023, I guess. Stability wise, it's extremely stable. 100 hours, it is stable, indicating that if I go it for longer, it should be stable, right? In terms of activity compared to all the reported results, it's far, far above than all the reported results until 2023. Okay. So since time is less, I will not discuss the mechanism part. So there is one debate that I will just quickly describe, and then I will jump to more. So the debate is, I kept telling you that it's a black gold which takes the photon, goes to electron goes to the excited states, and it's the electron which does all the reaction. That's the electron mediated, right? That's my title. But then there are a group of people who are saying none of this happens. Electron comes back. While coming back, it hits the nanoparticle. It's called electron phonon coupling, and it generates lots of heat around the nanoparticle, and it is that heat which does the catalysis and not the electron, right? But however, we have done range of catalysis to prove that it is the electron and not the heat. But to save the time, I'm not able to explain to you all this. And I will directly go to some of the challenges of this process. If the results are so exciting, why are they not commercially viable? That should be the first question that everyone should be asking, right? So let me answer that question. First is use of expensive gold. You all will think, why are you using gold? It's expensive, right? So to answer that, we have come up with this something called nickel nitride nanosheet. They function exactly like black gold in terms of the rate of the reaction. But nickel nitrogen bond is weak, so within 24 hours, it starts breaking and it's not stable. So we also made a copper and silver. They're also good in terms of rate of the reaction, but they are unstable. As soon as they seize the water or moisture, water or air, they oxidize and activity goes down. So we decided that we go back to the gold. Although it is expensive, but this is something that we need to understand, that even the metal is expensive, the overall process may not be expensive. If I'm using a small amount of the gold, and if I'm using it for say 1 year with extremely high kinetics, then the overall process will still be economical. This is something we have to always worry about, rather than saying that I'm using expensive metal, so process will always be expensive. Not really. If the kinetics is good and if it is stable, it can still be economical. Second challenge, concentrated light power. I'm talking about photocatalysis, use of a sunlight, but I'm not using one sun. I'm using 20 sun. So I need a 20 sun power to get that kinetics. Now how do I get a 20 sun? So there are two ways to do this. I develop a new material which has the ability to get the same rate at a 1 sun, which is 100 milliwatt per centimeter square, which we are trying to work on. But there is other way of it, other answer to this, which is these concentrated mirrors, which concentrate the sun, and you can go up to 40, 50 suns. And these are commercial processes, not something new. So we are also going in this direction, using these concentrators to carry out those photocatalytic reactions. Third, need of hydrogen. CO2 plus hydrogen. Where do I get a green hydrogen? Where do I get a hydrogen? So the entire CO2 chemistry is directly connected with a green hydrogen mission. If there is no green hydrogen, this entire CO2 chemistry cannot work. So, but there is a green hydrogen which emits minimum amount of CO2, and I'm ignoring this calculation to save the time. But there is one more way where you can do this entire process without hydrogen indirectly, and this is this particular reaction. Propane, I guess all industry needs propene. Polypropylene is one of the biggest industry. So you take propane goes to propene, it donates one hydrogen molecule. That hydrogen molecule reacts with CO and you get a CO. And you see, you don't need a hydrogen, obviously. Indirectly, you are generating the hydrogen in the reaction, but you are doing two challenging reactions in one go. This is another work that we did. Now the most challenging part of it, light penetration depth. We all know that the photon can penetrate only up to certain distance, maybe 10 nanometer, and if you play with the structure, porosity, 1000 nanometer. But when you fill a reactor with say black gold, what will happen? Only the surface black gold will get the light, rest of the part will not get any light. And they are just there dummy, right? So that's the first challenge. Obviously these are challenge which has no solution practically, but some of the solution for these is, can I use a fluidized blade reactor? Can I use a flat bed reactor, a very thin layer where the light can penetrate? So one has to think about a non-conventional way of a photoreactor. And again, one can say the light is available only during the daytime and not in the night. How do I solve that problem? So these are some of the more the engineering problem than the chemistry or a materials problem that some of you has to solve. Okay, so how much time I have? Okay, I finished my time, so there is the answer for this is there, but I will skip all of this and I will just take some questions. But another group of my, another part of my group works on completely different thing, which says that the photocatalysis is impossible. The reactor design, light penetration is such a non-solvable problem, just assumption, although we don't believe, we believe that this will happen one day. So we work completely on a thermal catalysis where we are making material which works simply by using the heat and not the light. And we use the concept of defects to design a new catalytic system. But we don't have a time, so I cannot explain. But this is one of our discovery which now we are trying to commercialize with the BPCL. We designed this catalyst in lab at 100 milligram scale in a very small 50 ml beaker. Now we did this at a 10 liter scale, only synthesis as well as a catalysis. This is another project which also we worked with the industry now with a 20 liter upscaling. Right. With that, I like to conclude that I showed you the black gold which acts as an antenna, takes the light, give it to the reactor which is nickel and does all this interesting chemistry. Challenges, you need to upscale the photoreactor, find out a way to do this reaction at a low intensity light. Can I use the IR photon in the dark and do a photochemistry in the light? And another thing is you can ask why this metal, why not that metal? This is one of the very routine questions. And I think there is no answer to this. Ideally, there's an entire periodic table that you can combine with, right? And that's humanly impossible, and that's where I believe that use of AI ML to design a new material based on whatever the input that we have will be the future of this particular field. With that, I like to thank my group and Department of Atomic Energy for most of the funding and listening to me. Thank you very much, all of you. I can take some questions. I have 5 minutes left, if you want.
Just one question, Vivek.
Yes.
I think this is very exciting because other than the diagnostics, this probably is the first time an industrial use of gold has been detected and has been proposed.
Yes.
I hope similar to silver prices, apart from ornament, because people were always complaining, what is the industrial use of gold?
Gold.
Right, so this is, in my opinion, an outstanding work, and I think this is the right direction in which we should take it forward. And you're absolutely true. And many a times the initial investments may be large, but since those investments are not going to go off, that gold is always going to remain as gold.
As gold, yeah.
The overall logistics and overall economics needs to be looked at.
Yes.
Compliments for your presentation.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Yes.
So how do you know that some of the electrons they are ejected or few of the electrons they are not ejected?
So we do this transient absorption spectroscopy. Because of the time I did not show you, but that allows you to monitor the excitation process. How many electrons are excited? What is the lifetime of this electron? How many of them injected into nickel, into the CO2? This transient absorption spectroscopy allows you to see this indirectly. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I request Dr. Dilip Chaudhary to present a memento to Professor Vivek Paul Shettiwar. Thank you, sir. Moving on, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Sharad Lande, the Vice President and the Head of Mixed Metal Oxide Catalysis and Adsorption at Reliance Industries Limited, Mumbai. Sir has over 19 years of research experience in heterogeneous catalysis, adsorptive purification, and nanomaterials for VOC, CO, and green hydrogen purification. His pioneering contributions have led to the commercialization of 9 in-house technologies and the development of 7 pilot-scale processes, supporting the Make in India initiative with 57 patents and numerous publications. Dr. Lande has been honored with several national awards, including the CSI Professor S.K. Bhattacharya Eminent Scientist Award and the FGI Research Innovation Excellence Award, and is a fellow of both Royal Society of Chemistry UK and the Indian Chemical Society. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sharad Lande.
Thank you. Yeah, good afternoon, all of you. First, I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me on the great occasion. My connection with, I think, Professor Rajadhyaksha, indirect, it's fine. When I joined my PhD with Professor Yadav in 2000, so that time just a fresh candidate, he used to suggest to read the thesis of Dr. Pramod and Dr. Manoj. So I learned that time many things from his thesis because catalysis was new area for me. So that enriched my knowledge, and today from last more than 20 years I am working in the catalysis. So I think this is only one tribute I will say. Dr. Jasra from our group, who is the heading of R&D, he has covered the Geolite part commercialization. Apart from that, we are working on noble metal supported catalyst also. So this is one of the catalysts recently we have commercialized from lab to commercial scale, and that I will say tribute to Professor Rajadhyaksha. So this is this. So I will just briefly cover the fourth part. What is the industrial catalysis and why we should scale up and what are the challenges. Then concept to commercialization, one case we'll study. And challenges for the researcher who are working in the academics, how to take and what are the process available to convert into the commercial scale, and some future aspects. So today if you see, already many things has talked, but just industry perspective, more than 90% of world manufactures the catalyst, where one or multiple stages they use the catalyst. And out of that, if you see consumer good, intermediate, base chemical, 80% are the catalytic process, which are based on the heterogeneous catalysis. Then 15% homogeneous catalyst, like polymer we produce, that is based on the homogeneous catalyst. 5% biocatalyst, Professor Sharma also in the morning, he said we should focus on the biocatalyst. So that area also emerging. But now we are talking about the shift which is going to happen in the fossil field. So there also catalysis is going to play a major role towards the circular society. And all these type of catalysts which are on lab scale or commercial scale, starting from Phantom, metal oxide, coordination catalysis, photo, ultrasound, all people are taking synergy and blending, which may change the game of the catalysis. So why this is important in industrial perspective? Today, if you see, the global market of industrial catalysis is 42 billion, which has started from 2019 is of 33 billion. And what is projected? It will go to 65 billion by 2034. And what are the major areas which will impact? Refining petrochemical will go up, polymers, especially environmental also that we are talking, the batteries and other thing. So the area is very, very large, and more than 4 lakh ton of the heterogeneous catalyst produced worldwide every year. So the impact you can see, the catalysis in different way. Today, if you see the role of catalysis in various industries, starting from fertilizer, our daily stuff, toothpaste, anything, polyester, food grade industry, even during COVID, polypropylene, which is a mask we use, and then vaccine, all the research due to possible to catalysis. At one stage, it will use. And what right now targeting the industry for sustainability that we are talking. So today, more than 80% of chemical companies declare that sustainability has become equally important as the renewable growth. So everybody is thinking about the circular economy and sustainable future with the help of the catalysis. So where the current Indian scenario where the catalysis can play an important role. Today, if you see energy security, our import bill is more than 87% in 2023-24, which has costed more than 25 billion, and transport sector consuming almost 40% of the oil. Secondly, import also is very big from China and other countries, which is more than 35%, which is costing 20 billion. And now, as Vivek and other people talk on the CO2 emission, we are third largest CO2 emitter. Out of that, 10% is going for the transportation. So obviously, energy security, import dependency, and carbon emissions are the key issues driving the adoption of alternate powertrain for the Indian economy. So catalysis will play an important role in addressing these issues. So coming to the industrial catalyst design, that is our topic, my topic. So generally, when we scale up any catalyst in industry, we consider various factors when we do develop in the lab, in the powder form or shape form. So obviously, what are the catalyst preparation method, selectivity, stability, catalyst design, in terms of especially the mechanical properties, strength, bulk density, which can sustain the high pressure, high temperature in the reactor. Then chemical and physical property, which is basically composition, which are the metals, alloys, and surface area and pore size is for better diffusion of the molecule, which is helpful. And then acidity also for depend on the reaction, alkylation, oxidation. That is also one of the important parameter. In industry, we use various shapes of the catalyst, like you can see the tablet form, or this cylindrical shape, hollow sphere, monolith. This also depend on the reaction. If your reaction is exothermic, then we should use this type of hollow sphere, which is give a better diffusion of your molecule to reduce the hotspot across the reactor. So all these are a lot of chemistries involved here. So these are basically optimization, what type of application you are doing. Then various stages are there from concept to commercialization, what Dr. Jasra also has shown. But there are various stages are involved in that, from idea to characterization, mechanism, kinetics, pilot scale, and then finally we do the pilot scale trial. But during this process, what we learn in last 15 years, fundamental understanding is very important for any catalyst. Then proof of concept, technical and economical feasibility also is important. There are various processes who are technically feasible, but not economically feasible. So that case, after TRL 7 also sometimes we have to think whether we have to take on commercial scale. Then IPR, patent is very important in today's world. Again, we should have FTA also, is different from patent, freedom to operate. That also, if you want to develop any product in India, that is important. The most important part, toll manufacturing in India, because there are very few people in India who can do the scale-up, catalyst scale-up, especially heterogeneous. And third-party development, because somebody doesn't have the facility. We approach many people, multinational and Indian companies. And apart from that, process safety also is important. Whatever you are putting in the catalyst, it should not lead avoid the processes, any safety-related issue. So that also consider all our manufacturing team. Obviously, you need a scientist and engineer. Without only scientist cannot think to scale up the catalyst and process. And time frame depend on the catalyst, 3 to 10 years. So if you produce on the commercial catalyst, there are various stages. Like in terms of the proper ingredient, raw material available, then mixing, various equipments are required. These are different, again, different game of the chemistry. When you scale up the product, various properties are important. The angle, mixing, heating, calcination, the shaping. So all these steps, whatever I'm showing, that actually we do in the industry when we scale up the catalyst. And every step is critically important. We prepare a SOP for each steps. Otherwise, it will impact on your final performance of the catalyst. So I will not go in detail due to time. So this is one of the case we developed recently. So one of the process in Reliance, we do solid state polymerization. Their basically target is to put the fiber grade PET resins. In 2024, the demand was 36 million ton, and in 2010, just 16 million ton. So you can see how much was the growth in the PET bottles and polymers. Reliance, we have 3 plants of this resin. Around we are producing 1.15 million of the PET, DMD, HMD, and PMD. So process is basically in solid state polymerization. We have the fluidized reactor. Their basic target is to increase the intrinsic resources. So you have the monomer, 0.6 to 0.84. A reaction is terephthalic acid plus ethylene glycol. During this process, a large quantity of nitrogen is used. And the quality of PET pastry is very critical to get the transparent bottle if you want to produce such type of application. So raw material is this one. But nitrogen, how it is critical for the process, just I will explain next slide. The nitrogen basically job is to provide the inert atmosphere in the SSP reactor to inhibit the other reactions, oxidation and other degradation of the polymer happens. Then basically to make the process more cost effective, we have to recycle the nitrogen. So how we are doing, we are taking the nitrogen, purifying the nitrogen. Here is the filter is there to remove the polymer particles. And then this is a basically catalyst bed. Here we have put our own developed catalyst, which will convert all the hydrocarbon impurities which are coming in recycled nitrogen, which quantities are very less, 3000 to 4000 ppm, but which is very critical operation in the lab. Otherwise, which will impact on the PET quality, which should be removed by the recycling. So catalyst will convert all hydrocarbon to CO2 and water. Then here also we have developed our own adsorbent at Dr. Jasra showed. So our own adsorbent 3 molecules we have put here that is absorbing the water. So R&D has developed this catalyst for our special applications for the recycled nitrogen gas. So our journey has started in 2017-18. Starting from the alumina support, base catalyst is very important support material because when you put any noble metal, which has a critical property. So this material we have developed in India by our own R&D, we have patent also. Then when the COVID started, our toll manufacturing started. That was a critical time for us. So whole manufacturing has done in COVID. Then actual catalyst we have put in the plant in 2022-23. So that whole journey I will just show you what was the stages has come. So there are 2 things we focus here. High purity alumina support is very critical for catalyst. Adsorbent is different, but catalyst, most important impurity profiling, silica, iron, soda, it should be in a very low level. The uniform size and bulk density to pack the reactor, it should be 2 to 4 or any size, but it should be optimum. Crust and attrition loss also important to make the desired strength of the particle. So that also property a lot of efforts because you could develop many batches, but we could not succeed. Then again, surface acidity. In terms of catalyst, preparation method, wet impregation method, spraying method, what is the method you are following, that is so important. You have to develop on the scale of scale. Catalyst activation, what type of activation you are doing, gases, what type of gas, hydrogen, nitrogen, air you are using. Then ultimate goal is to get the proper metal particle size, shape, and dispersion for performance. So this is a basically alumina support development. We have developed the process in the lab first. Then we have developed a selected third party to design our process. These are the whole steps are involved. And this whole process we have patented. This starts from green shade, neuralizer, humidity. All these things has to done for proper crust strength and attrition to reduce the attrition loss, which should be less than 0.1%. So our whole R&D team was present during 5 metric ton of alumina we have produced. But there are various trials we have taken. So I'm not going to do in detail what are the batches we have done. But you can see this is the final material we have produced. So what is the beauty of this material? The manufacturing cost of this alumina we import from BSF, that thing is 2,000 rupees per kg. But now we have manufactured in India, we have developed the third party, the cost is just 200 rupees per kg, but with the same quality. So that is our competency for the catalyst. Without support, you cannot think any catalyst if you want to develop heterogeneous catalyst. So next part was the catalyst technology development. That is the one part, third party was there. For catalyst, we have developed another third party who was not in catalyst business. Just our passion was there and they are also passionate. So there also the parties basically, what they did, they put some facility for catalyst manufacturing. And there also we have done several discussion with third parties, various abroad and India also. But many parties doesn't have the facility in India. So that was our challenge. So in COVID also, we could not get any third party support also. So our team support present during the vendor side and we could develop all the batches, support preparation, catalyst preparation, drying, activation, final processing in the reduction of the metal. So basically what we did, we have prepared the 50 kg lot, each lot was 50 kg. So you can see all the batches we have produced of 50 kg batch and then composite catalyst, the batch we can see. But what challenges we face? Raw material purity, every time raw material we have to check. Assay analysis, SOP you have to maintain, equipment cleaning. Any deviation will have serious impact on the performance. Few batches has reproduced due to the quality issues. Our physical monitoring team was there during the manufacturing time to time, which helped for the smooth operation to meet the desired specs. So this is a basically characterization as we do every batch we did the characterization. Without characterization we can't judge the performance. This is a performance evaluation done for model reaction, propane conversion. So you can see all the batches we have tested. Then obviously any manufacturing site or anybody who asks what is the performance against computer catalyst. So we have performance, benchmark our performance. This is the best computer catalyst in the market. This is our catalyst. You can see the performance is better than any computer catalyst that is available. Based on that, we approach to our sites if we want to commercialize our own catalyst. But then as a scientist, as a curiosity, what are the challenges we face and how to correlate with the performance? Why our catalyst was giving higher performance? So one things we develop here, the alumina percentage basically. This is not reported anywhere. This also we have patented. The percent of octahedral tetrahedral percentage in alumina. In alumina there are two sides, octahedral and tetrahedral. Generally the percentage is 70 to 30. But in your case, we have increased up to 5% more. So what is happening that when you put the metal, platinum or palladium metal, which is coordinated with the octahedral side. So you can see it, our metal will sit on these sides. Due to that, you will get a higher active sites, edges, which is required for specially oxidation reaction. And how it will help? Which will help to get the octahedral hexagonal phase of the platinum or palladium metal, which will not obtained by any other method. You need preparation in the support also and needed preparation in the preparation method also. So we can see we have prepared control size of 20 nanometer for this redox catalyst, which have high index plane, especially octahedral and hexagonal. So most of the phases we have seen in this by the HRTM analysis. So if you achieve the octahedron or hexaoctahedron, your platinum palladium will sit on the corner edges, which is desired for your oxidation reaction. So that is a novelty of our catalyst. Obviously, any commercialization technology will not come without challenges. So we face many challenges. First thing, COVID situation was there. So suitable third-party development, third-party visit, going on challenges. R&D lab was partially open. Mumbai lab was completely open, closed. Then in Baroda, we could open 2 labs. There we could do the testing. Reproducibility of the batches, that also challenge we face. Pressure from the manufacturer side to meet the deadline. They told you we want the catalyst in 3 month time because that time the third party also was not giving the catalyst from outside. Obviously risk and adaptability we learn in that case. So these are the challenges we face in terms of support. Sometimes we got a pink particle, sometimes broken particle with third party. There are 2 third parties. Doing the manufacturing, we got a black particle due to over reduction, over chairing. Sometimes complete reduction of the capping agent. That also batches we could see. So these are the all challenges we face. But with the help of our support and during visit COVID, we could reproduce the batches, we could help the third party. So we have almost developed the 5 metric ton of alumina and 2.5 metric ton of the redox catalyst. Vendors also are different. So that was also a challenge. But we could manage as a passion, we have to deliver the catalyst to the site and develop our own catalyst. So ultimately, once we manage the catalyst, we dispatch to the one of the site, Hajira sites. This is a picture of the third party. We produce the catalyst under our supervision. Now the main challenge comes when the catalyst commercialized. When you put the reactor, then you will not get the sleep, because if I put my reactor, it doesn't work. So whole credibility lies on the scientist. So that challenge we face. So when we put the reactor in the two sites, the catalyst luckily is working very well. Now we have completed almost more than 1,000 days. At one site 1,200 days and other site 1,100 days. And beauty of this catalyst, due to high activity at lab scale, operating temperature also now 50 degree lower compared to the competitor catalyst. So we could save the energy saving also. It is also in more than 3 crore. And this is a 10-to-1 reactor for such type of application we use. So our team also was present during the loading of the catalyst, because it should catalyst load properly. So that is one area. This is just tentative result. Before COD they measure, before 1,000, 12,000, and after treatment it should be less than 2,000. So that also which are obtained. So as a customer, always he will ask what are the benefit of our catalyst when you develop in India. So what we observed that in terms of catalyst cost, 40% lower catalyst cost, 50% lower operating temperature, higher life will get expect due to the performance, reduce import dependency, which is RIL property we have in patent and FTO, and obviously it will reduce the waste generation, so less waste generation. So which impact on the environment. So this is a support, and this is a catalyst complete package we have developed and supplied to the site. And apart from that, as a scientist, we are not stopping there. In last 2 years, we have developed many applications for this catalyst now. So this is our vision now, platforming catalyst. One is the CO2 purification, because if you want to utilize CO2 for any application, there are some impurities which can burn and again convert to CO2 enrichment. Then VOC removal, complete oxidation, green hydrogen purification, removal of the oxygen on ppm level. So that also we have developed on pilot scale. And VOC from SBR plant, their styrene is the impurities. So this process we have developed on the pilot scale. We are further exploring, there is no end, because target is to operate at lower temperature to get the energy benefit. As Dr. Jasra also mentioned, these are the series of the catalysts from our group we have developed, commercialized, and which are actually working in the plant. So Relarocate already explained the Relox, selective dehydrogenation. Recently we have developed one catalyst for 1-hexene also. That is also first time commercialized in the India. Reforming catalyst, adsorbent for chlorine removal, that is also our, we have filed the patent. So I think that I will say commercialization of Indian invention and innovations are critical to building the scientific temper for Atmanirbhar Bharat. And these are the challenges for the researcher. These are the all industrial processes where we are producing the chemical. But if you see all our catalytic process, red mark Reliance is producing. So starting from selective dehydrogenation for LAB, reforming, all the catalysts they have processes in terms of conversion, selectivity, high pressure, high temperature, CO2 formation. So researcher can look all the processes, and they can, if they do a 1% selectivity enhancement, this is a big advantage. Like ethylene oxide process, Professor Sharma showed. Today the selectivity is only 90%, 10% CO2 generation is there. So we can increase the selectivity and we can improve the process economies. So these are the challenges for the researcher. This is basically whole team has worked. This is not one person job. So you can see whole team is there from R&D along with our head Dr. Jasra. And then we are coordinated with all the other third party, PNC, then intern timber. This is a recognition we received for this catalyst commercialization from labs to scale recently. FJ Award for 2023-24. Then we are finalist in the International Gulf Energy Excellence Award in last year. We are winner in Confederation of CII Award, Innovation Award. And last week, we are also finalist in Industrial Green Chemistry Award only for this invention. And apart from that, I have received the personal recognition. I'm involved in this project. So SK Bhattacharya and this other award. And what we see for a future perspective role of catalysis, obviously now we are talking solar, wind batteries, green hydrogen, mass conversion. So catalysis is going to play important role. Not only on that, even the circular economy, PETP, recycling, where process we are talking glycolysis, methanolysis. So there also catalysis is going to play important role. The CO2 emission, obviously it is important for industry. So there also purification, conversion, MEG, methanol, exploring seawater. Then single atom catalysis, that also is coming in the picture. And AI and machine learning, that also people are going to use to design the catalyst, which can reduce your commercialization gap. Obviously, focus partnership between academics and chemical industries to set up the innovation and commercialization skill also required for the job. Both academia and industry meet equal important social need. So both are equally important for our society. So thank you very much. And this is our team in Baroda, and we have a team in Mumbai also. So we have both the labs and both the facility. So we have the Catalysis Society of India also, many people follow. So Dr. Jasra is the Catalysis Society of President. So we are doing many activities. So this CSI communication especially, we are monthly publishing to get the industrial update. So you can join the LinkedIn also. You will get all these issues. So just to make the awareness in catalysis, what is happening and what are the expectations from academics and industry, what is expecting. So we are covering in brief. So with that, I would like to thank, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Now I request Dr. Ashish Chaudhary to present a memento to Dr. Sharad Lande. Thank you, sir. Let us welcome our next speaker for the afternoon. It's my honor to introduce Professor Sanjay Mahajani, Institute Chairperson of Chemical Engineering, IIT Bombay. Sir is a leading expert in applied catalysis and process intensification. His research focuses on developing heterogeneous catalytic systems for sustainable chemical transformation. Professor Mahajani has made impactful contributions to catalyst and greenhouse process design. He is also a fellow of Indian National Academy of Engineering. He has received several honors including Applied Research Award of IIT Bombay and the UAA ICT Distinguished Alumnus Award. Please join me in welcoming Professor Mahajani.
Good afternoon. While this is loading, let me thank organizers for inviting me for this particular event. I have very fond memories of Professor Rajadeksha. 1985, I joined that time UDCT as a bachelor student. Professor Rajadeksha was our hostel warden that time. Then he taught us physical chemistry in second year, and I think he went for sabbatical for 1 year. I came back in fourth year, he taught us applied catalysis. That was elective, and I was fortunate enough to somehow, I didn't know much about catalysis that time, but I opted for it. And I would say I was lucky to have learned a lot from him that time. Our entire batch of all my contemporary students were highly influenced by his personality, both in terms of his knowledge and depth in understanding, many other qualities. So I consider myself lucky to stand before you talking about my work in catalysis. Let me give you my background. I'm not a core catalysis person. I did my PhD in ICT only, just about few meters away from here, in process intensification. Mostly we worked with ion exchange resin catalyst that time, and but it was more on the applied side. And then I went to IIT Bombay and started working on or continuing my PhD work, and slowly started looking at catalysis as well. Okay, so I am a reaction engineer who is looking at catalysis. So that's my background. So the topic that I've chosen here is our recent work on catalysis for upgradation of C5 derived biofeedstock. Of course, it is, though I'm going to talk about only one reaction, we have been working on many reactions, but before that I would tell you about the driving force, why we got into this field. Using biofeedstock is very tricky thing in the sense that you have a raw material which has a tendency to form oligomers and all, and when you use heterogeneous catalyst, there is always a tendency of deactivation. We are going against nature, no? Like it's, biofeedstock is already stable for quite some time, and then you're breaking those bonds. So if you look at C5 feedstock, it's furfural based chemicals, and many industrially important chemicals that have been identified. And we are working mainly on furfural alcohol and the one in the left corner, that is furan. But as I said, like why we took up this, because we are initially very confident that we can crack the problems. And again, the inquiry came from industry. And the reason was that we had some success in this particular process. This is a chemical which is nothing to do with green feedstock, methylpentenone, which is a perfumery intermediate, or rather it is used to make something called as isoe super, and which goes in fragrances. So the chemistry is like this. You have acetaldehyde, which reacts with methyl ethyl ketone to form methylpentenone. Aldol condensation reaction releases water. And further, this MPO reacts with myrcene and forms the compound of interest. But our idea is, our objective is to try and see whether we can intensify this particular process. Okay, we didn't have catalysis in mind when we started working on it. And we went all the way from laboratory to pilot level, and finally took a patent and transferred the technology to the industry. Understanding chemistry, doing kinetics in laboratory, batch reactors, continuous reactors. There's one more step which I've not shown here, reactor with side injection and so on, and this is a final pilot setup. If you look at the side reactions, acetaldehyde being very reactive molecules, especially under acid catalyzed conditions, forms crotonaldehyde, everyone knows that. And not just that, it forms many oligomers. Now, so most of the times, when you use homogeneous catalysts, the tendency is to just separate these oligomers in the form of tar and all and burn them off in incinerator and take care of that. But when you use heterogeneous catalysts, the problem, and idea is to use heterogeneous catalysts. Why? Because there are advantages, like you have less effluent, you have so many advantages, like your material of construction, corrosion is taken care of and all that. So that's why it's a bit challenging using heterogeneous catalysts. And if you look at the side products, we did characterization of all these components, the side products using osmometry, GCMS and so on, and came up with a kinetic model that describes the reaction scheme very well. Okay. But then we realized that the catalyst gets deactivated as expected because of these high molecular weight compounds, and getting this catalyst back to its original state takes huge effort. Okay, you have to do washing, you have to do oxidation, sulfonation, and so on. Okay, now it's a bit challenging job, and then we said, what do we do now? Shall we use ion exchange resin, or let's go back to the original homogeneous catalyst, or any other heterogeneous catalyst will have same issues, right? But then something that a reaction engineer would do, like if you have a reaction of A plus B giving C and 2A giving some side products, like you'll always think of using A as a drop point addition in the pool of B and try and increase the selectivity, maintain its concentration at a very low level, and this is what we realized, and we were very happy. Now what is this graph? It shows conversion versus selectivity, and in a semi-batch reaction wherein we actually add acetaldehyde in dropwise manner, the selectivity increases significantly, and this is very encouraging this. And then we go ahead and try and do it in a continuous mode, and the continuous version of semi-batch reaction is like you add your reactant in as a side injection to the reactor, and we are able to get almost equal selectivity, and then we implemented it in the pilot level, and it's about 600 hours run, and the selectivity, and somehow the deactivation was reduced. Like it was not expected, but at least for 600 hours, we get consistent performance. And that is mostly because we played with the contacting pattern. We tried to use selectivity engineering, as Professor Sharma keeps saying, like try and play with contacting patterns, try and play with reactor design and so on, and get as much selectivity as possible. This is what we got. Not just selectivity increased, but the catalyst deactivation also got reduced, and our life of catalyst increased. So we're very happy. Like we can apply all this to other reactions also. Now just to tell you what advantage we get by this, like you remove many steps in the conventional process, use of mineral acids, like you're taking care of washing, you're taking care of course you don't need to do neutralization. So much energy is saved in effluent treatment, where you use multiple effect evaporators and all, right? So process become compact and cost effective and environment friendly. Fine. So with this now, we were quite, as I said, quite confident, and then somebody came with this reaction of converting furan to acetyl furan, and we said, fine, this is almost very, very similar to acetaldehyde. Let's try and apply what we learned to this particular case. And the second question came in mind. Of course, we started with ion exchange resin because I was very friendly with ion exchange resin. We worked before a lot. But can we play with catalyst strength? Now I'll explain that in a bit detail as to what it means, and play with the catalyst formulation and increase the selectivity at catalyst level and not at process level. Okay, so these two questions, and then we started working on it. I wrote a DST proposal, got one student working on a very brilliant chap, and I'm going to present the work that some of the results that he's got. Now, as I again come back to the same slide. So we work on these two reactions, a lot of work going on, but at the same, I'm not going to explain both of them, probably this one only, acetyl furan. Reaction is furan plus acetic anhydride giving acetyl furan, and it releases acetic acid, as everyone knows, as acetic anhydride is a acylating agent. Here, reaction is acid catalyzed, mild conditions, and very strong tendency to form oligomers. And there's no literature saying which oligomers and where do they come from and all. And anybody would say that furan, being very reactive compound under acid catalyzed conditions, would form oligomers. But it didn't work that way. We'll come to that. And of course, because oligomers are formed, catalyst gets deactivated, and there's no proven heterogeneous catalyst for this particular reaction. Commercially, it is produced with homogeneous catalyst. Now, the first shock, of course, I'm not going to present all the results. Again, the industry-sponsored projects, so some results I can't elaborate on that. But the main thing that we found here is batch versus semi-batch. And again, that's like applying the same principle of acetaldehyde to methylpentanone. We realized that conversion in batch and semi-batch, if it's equal, you look at the yield and selectivity, like semi-batch is much inferior to batch, okay? And this is to our surprise that, so that means furan is not a culprit alone, okay? That means something else is happening, and probably acetyl furan, which is a product, that is the culprit. Now, if you want to increase the selectivity, if the product is harmful for catalyst, then one possibility is to remove the product during the course of the reaction. This is something that, again, engineers would think of, right? But we thought, well, let's first work on the catalyst, okay? And of course, separation is not that easy from the reaction mixture. So, can I play with the catalyst and see whether I can avoid oligomer formation, and not just oligomer formation, but also the catalyst deactivation, which is more important, right? If you use heterogeneous catalyst. I'm going to tell you the final result, but after some time, okay? Now, if you do the reaction in fixed bed reactor, as expected, as time as time proceeds, okay, on stream kind of time, you see that the conversion goes down, and that is obviously because of the catalyst deactivation. But look at the selectivity, or yield rather, it is going along with conversion. That means selectivity is not changing much, but whatever small amount of side product form is responsible for deactivation. As I said, can we play with the strength of the catalyst and avoid deactivation? So we thought we'd go back to the basics, and instead of trying any heterogeneous catalyst in the beginning, try out different acids with different strengths. So when I say strength, what does it mean? Like, concentration is not a strength, right? Strength means it's how strong the catalyst is. Like everybody has learned that in physical chemistry, and you can see on the x-axis you have Hammett acidity. Now every catalysis person knows what Hammett acidity is. I'll elaborate that further. You can't just explain acidity based on the pH in aqueous solution. And there is another indicator which is called as Hammett acidity, which is obtained by protonation of that acid, protonation of a weak base by that acid, how strongly it protonates. Okay. So based on that, like you have these different acid strengths, different acids with different strengths. We did a reaction, went to almost 100% conversion, and we looked at what's the trend. And it's typical volcano type plot, wherein we see that as the acid becomes stronger, like you have side products becoming more and more. Okay, this is an observation. Now, the main thing is, like when you have side products formed, we have to characterize them, and we have to find out the origin of these side products, where do they come from, and for that, we tried to do something called as LC-MSMS, right? And this is something that I've learned as a new learning for me, and took help from BASF scientists to understand the side products that are being formed. It's very, very crucial. Most of the times we don't do that. But if you really want to understand like the reaction mechanism and want to play with catalysts, unless we know the side products, their structures, their pathway, the mechanism, it's difficult to move ahead. So this is one technique that probably most of you would know. In MS you do ionization, characterize molecular weight, and you get molecular weights of different compounds. But suppose you have isomers, okay, you difficult to distinguish them. So MS means further it does fragmentation, okay, with some energy provided, about 30-40 electron volts, and then you get fragments, and based on those fragments you do some reverse interpretation and find out which isomer it is. Right? Now you can see the example here. In our case, you have two different compounds formed, and both are formed in our case. But look at the structures. The molecular mass is same, but structures are different. But based on fragmentation pattern, we are able to characterize them. And this is, of course, a very busy slide, and many, of course, on the left-hand side, this is the magnified version is on the right-hand side. So what we identified, these are the compounds, acetylfuran the first week, then diacetylfuran also forms. Of course, its quantity is not much. But what is more important, the main culprit, is these two compounds, okay, nucleophilic substitution at carbonyl carbon atom and nucleophilic substitution at the ring of the furan, okay, and both are found there in this LCMS MS results, okay. Now these are the structures of them, and not just that, inside the pores we couldn't take the samples out because inside the pores we'll have even bigger molecules formed, okay, right. But then with this, like, we are able to backtrack and see how these molecules are formed and come up with some mechanism of formation of these compounds. Okay, I can sit with someone who is interested and elaborate it, but somehow we came up with this mechanism. The main reaction, the mechanism is this, and the side product, there are many products. This one of them we've shown here. Okay, nucleophilic substitution at carbonyl carbon atom. Similarly, we'll have a ring, and there are oligomers of that also. So all this leads to some understanding the chemistry behind it, okay, and then now understanding chemistry, you have to use it for catalysis purpose, okay, that's more important, right? And with that, now this is a very famous tool, the DFT, okay, which actually looks at energy levels and finds out the activation energy, looking at the maximum barrier in your entire mechanism. We did it for all the catalysts, sulfuric acid, chlorosulfonic acid, phosphoric acid, all the homogeneous catalysts, by the way, because heterogeneous DFT we have done that, but at this stage it was not necessary, because we just want to understand how the strength matters. Okay, so this is just one example for sulfuric acid, but similar thing we did for other acids also, and you get the barrier which tells you the activation energy. Now this is a plot that I'm going to spend some time on, and that tells you a lot. Okay. Now what is this plot? On the x-axis you have something called as deprotonation energy of the acid catalyst, and basically it's acid strength. If the deprotonation energy is large, acid strength is large. And on the y-axis you have free energy barrier, which indicates the activation energy. Right. Now if you look at these three plots, the upper one is for DAF, diacetylfuran. Then the middle one is for the main reaction, and the bottom one is for the oligomer formation. Right. Now, when we say the bottom one is oligomer, that means the barrier is less for the oligomerization compared to that for the main reaction. So that itself says that the oligomerization is, the conditions are more conducive for oligomerization, right? Of course, this is coming from first principle. Now we are actually doing calculations, computational catalysis, and finding it out. Okay. Now, and these are for different, all these plots are different acids, the ones that I showed you before. Okay. Right. And of course, there is some theory, like if you see the Iglesias paper, 2007 or 8, like he has come up with the correlation between activation energy and Hammett acidity, and he says that it's linear, and we are also finding it to be linear. Now, another thing that we learn from this is the activation energy is low for this, and activation energy is higher for this. That means in reaction engineering, we say that if activation energy is higher, if you increase temperature, the selectivity goes up for the main reaction, right? And that is the observation we had, okay? And we went on increasing temperature, and then we got excellent results and got good selectivities. But still this is a problem, okay. Now imagine for this particular thing, or the entire range of acid strength, okay, we have this energy going down, like it's always lower than the main reaction. But this analysis for some other reaction can probably tell you that somewhere it crosses, right? And if it crosses, that gives you a hint that I should go for either a lower strength catalyst or higher strength catalyst to avoid deactivation, avoid oligomer formation. So we have come up with a methodology now to actually screen the catalyst. In this case, bit unfortunate that crossover didn't happen. Okay, so you have to bear with the deactivation. So important insight is that you have to live with deactivation. Catalyst is going to kind of stop working after some time, right? But be prepared for regeneration, right? And then we went and recommended some different catalysts. We actually looked at regeneration and everything, and recommended that the catalyst which is regenerable should be used for this process. And this outcome could have come without doing all this computational catalysis and all that. But the overall understanding is very crucial, okay, and that can be applied to other reactions also, right? All right, so now I'm going to switch over to next about 5 to 7 minutes. I'll just talk about another aspect, okay, which is a bit fundamental in nature, in the sense that we want to understand this acid site on ion exchange resin. Okay. Now this is a catalyst that has been used for so many years. Now you have MTB reaction, MTB is produced day in, day out using ion exchange resin in commercial reactors. Understanding the site strength is something that is not very well studied, at least not there in the literature. Now, so next few slides are dedicated for that, because this is offspin or offshoot of what we did for furan acylation. Now again, I go back to first principle. Now this is the Hammett equation. He's the one who first proposed this, and Hammett acidity function, as you know, depends on how strongly the weak base is protonated by your acid. Okay. Now, if the protonation is high, H0 is high, right? And that tells you how strong the acid is, right? Now, again, strength is not concentration. Okay, concentration may be high, but the strength may be less. Okay, strength of an acid, a particular site may be less. So, look at two mechanisms. Again, it's a 1957 paper wherein Long and others have actually said that there are two types of mechanism, A1 and A2 in acid catalysis, right? And for A1, like it is the Hammett acidity that governs. A2, in which the A1 is the Hammett is the concentration that governs. A2 is where the Hammett acidity that governs the overall rate of the reaction. Okay, it depends on the carbocation formed and its stability. And they showed with the help of experiments also that how Hammett acidity and rate constant are related to each other. Okay, but in some cases, some other hydrolysis, it is observed that it's a concentration that affects the rate concentration of the catalyst or H plus ions. I'm talking about Bronsted acids. Okay, and there's a famous correlation that came up of late from Iglesias' work. So I thought I'll just tell you about this background. We're talking about Hammett acidity, and Hammett acidity is supposed to be the main descriptor of acid strength, but it has its own limitations, right? And it is not very well accepted, especially for heterogeneous catalyst. Now what happens if you know the procedure to actually get these right-hand side values to calculate H0, they do titration, okay? And they take a weak base which changes its color, and you measure the spectroscopic kind of absorbance and find out the concentrations and all and calculate the Hammett acidity. Now if you have heterogeneous catalyst, this color change and all is very difficult, okay, and people have come up with some numbers, okay, for zeolites, ion exchanging resin, but they're all approximate numbers. Sometimes qualitatively they help us to take some decisions, but they are not the real value. So you should find out something different to measure the strength of the catalyst. Now, if you look at the methods that are used for measuring the strength of the acid catalyst, there are many methods, right? One, of course, one can do titration, but again, homogeneous catalyst, you can do it very well. Heterogeneous, to some extent, you can calculate the concentration, but strength cannot be calculated, right? So, you see ammonia, TPD, FTIR, and so on. And look at the last column, I'm talking about the strength, okay? And most of the methods or major ones like FTIR and all fell. And you look at ammonia TPD. Now, ammonia TPD, again, you adsorb ammonia on surface, and then you give a thermal treatment. Okay, go on increasing the temperature and see how ammonia comes out. Okay, and what temperature it comes out. Higher the temperature, stronger is the catalyst, right? Now, can you do it for ion exchange resin? You can't, because ion exchange resin is a polymeric substance, and at high temperature, it will melt, right? Or it will decompose. So that's the main limitation, that people have not really looked at the strength of a site on ion exchange resin, okay? So we looked at NMR. Now that's the best way to go ahead, and we tried to apply that method to ion exchange resin, and I'm happy to say that we have been successful in getting some conclusive results. Again, before talking about ion exchange resin, we tried to validate our method for the known acids, like all the strong acids, homogeneous acid, acetic acid, all the way up to trifluic acid and so on, and modeled those structures and came up with this correlation. Okay. And again, these are all theoretical calculations using DFT, and you see deprotonation energy on the x-axis and the chemical shift of NMR. Okay. So in NMR, you have a signature shift, okay, and then you once you have acidity, okay, the shift moves. Okay. Now, what are we trying to do here? We are using a probe called triphosphine oxide, okay, which is a base. It's going to react with acid, and because the deshielding over phosphorus, like this phosphorus NMR, 31P NMR shift is going to tell us how strong is the catalyst. Right? And we could see that, it's again for homogeneous acids, that there is a correlation if you just correlate with deprotonation energy, but it is not very good, and we got a nice linear relationship. You account for other factors also, calculate the other, not just deprotonation energy, but other forces acting when TMPO adsorbs on the resin particle. Okay. I'm just going to take 3-4 minutes further. Now, this is again an important, I would say, achievement, and we could publish it in Chemistry Select. And of course, reviewers had, they gave us tough time. We did a lot of analysis, and first time we showed that NMR shift can be correlated with acid strength very well. Okay. And that is through only computational work. Now let's apply it to ion exchange resin now. Okay. So what we did was, now we need experimental validation. So we did NMR analysis. Now for NMR, what we did was, like, we took ion exchange resin, we adsorbed and TMPO. So you need to do under very dry conditions and so on. This is the procedure that we followed, and then subjected to NMR and got the NMR analysis done. Okay, and this is for different ion exchange resins. Now I see Dr. Mendel is sitting here, who actually we had long discussions with him, and he gave us many samples, and they prepared samples for specifically. On the right hand side, you can see Indian samples with different acid concentrations and all that. On the left hand side, we have Amberlis 15, and we could see that there are peaks. These are NMR shifts that have happened. You see the arrow, shifts have happened, and depending on the type of resin, we get different shifts. Okay, and if you do deconvolution, you can see that there are at least 3 different categories of acid sites that are present on ion exchange resin. Okay. Now we want to correlate this. Now, how is Amberlis 15 different from Amberlis 35? How is Amberlis 15 different from 45? Or Indian 130 and so on? Okay, and they have different concentrations. Is there a correlation between concentration, that is milliequivalent per gram, and the acid strength? Okay, so we did again DFT, and this was again an important finding. Sorry, again, this is a very busy plot. but it shows different types of interactions that are taking place. And it was, now there are three different things I'm showing. On the left is first one, where you have only one SO3H group on the polymer. Then we have alternate SO3H groups on the polymer, and then you have dense one. So what it represents is that you are increasing the concentration from here to here to here. Okay, and then you look at the NMR shift. NMR shift is obtained by actual experiments, and NMR shift can be obtained by actual by doing DFT calculations also. And look at NMR shift 58, 59, and 82. So when you have SO3H groups very close to each other, they are dense. In that case, it is not just the concentration that is higher, but it is also the strength which is higher. Okay, and because of that, we are getting this very, very long NMR shift. Okay, and this is observed through actual theoretical calculations using DFT. Now, one would say, "Arey, this is fine. You can do all the calculations. You have programs and all. How can you validate that?" So then we went back and used those resins which were supplied by ion exchange and did a reaction, which is a model reaction, alpha-pinene isomerization, and we realized that indeed we get different results or different rates and yields for different acidities. I'm sure this is not a linear plot, but then, sorry, I've just shown 3 points here. We did it with all resins, and somehow the trend is quite evident. Okay. So with this, let me stop here and conclude. Of course, I have discussed many things, and this is still ongoing work. But one thing that we realize is identifying side products is very, very crucial. Of course, this is something that anyone can say, you have to identify side products. But I've shown how we use the knowledge of these side products and the mechanism by which they are formed can be used to calculate activation barriers, okay, and take a decision on the catalyst of a particular strength. Okay, then this is one important tool to characterize these side products, very crucial. DFT technique has successfully exploited non-covalent interactions in phosphine oxide based NMR measurement, and we use it successfully for ion exchange resins. And the last one, of course, is very crucial. And see, catalysis field is evolving, and it's very interesting. Of course, I don't need to tell you all that. But new tools are coming up, especially the advanced analytical techniques like this one. And then the computational catalysis is wide open now. Conventional performance evaluation methods like our laboratory reactors, they won't go anywhere. And the last one is reactor engineering, where we talk about novel reactor design. Combination of all of them, I think that gives us a lot of strength to come up with the processes which are environmentally benign and still cost effective. One reaction I've shown you here, but we are getting equally exciting or amazing results with hydrogenation of furfural to furfural alcohol. And if anyone wants to discuss that, I'll be very happy to share our results. Thank you very much. Thanks.
I request Dr. Gopal Joshi to present a memento to Professor Sanjay Mahajani.
Forgot to display the acknowledgement slide. Yeah, there's so many who contributed in this. Of course, Dr. Mehna's name is there in that slide. But DST, then my students actually, and then NCL, National Chemical Laboratory, where we did all this NMR analysis and other things. And BSF also, who helped us in characterizing those compounds. Sorry for that. It was a bit longish, I know.